Welcome to part 7 of this chassis repair-a-thon series of videos. This is the final part because the final remaining chassis I can't work on because it's a Hanorex MTC 9000, I believe. Yep, MTC 9000, as you can see right here. I can't work on it because I do not have a compatible tube for this type of neck. The only tube with this type of neck that I've ever seen is off of a Wells Gardner 6100, which is a vector monitor that came in Tempest and Star Wars, Atari Star Wars. So I don't have any way to actually test this once it's repaired, and so I can't work on it, unfortunately. I don't think I even have a tube that I could use to connect here at the yoke. This is the yoke connector, so I'm not going to be able to actually work on this one. But I think 6 out of 7 successful repairs will be good. Let's put this away. So what we have here on the last and final part here is a Kortek KTW-N, as in November, 26. So Kortek KTW-N 26. And what this basically is this is used in almost exclusively Neo Geo. I don't have any documentation to support that, but the only chassis the only machines and tubes I've ever seen this installed on came out of a Neo Geo, and it just so happens that I have one just like this that's in the Neo Geo machine that I've had forever. And this particular one has a symptom here. It says Neo Geo. Let me zoom in actually. Neo Geo 4-slot, displayed fine, then blind to no sound. So that makes me think this is actually good. And the reason I say that is because if the monitor died, that shouldn't cause the Neo Geo machine to stop working. You should still have game sounds and be able to play blind. Playing blind means you can hear the game running and everything seems to be okay, there's just no image. So if everything crapped out, I think maybe he's got the owner of this, I should say, actually has a problem with the game and the board and not necessarily the chassis. So we're going to find out. So I want to mention here that this is actually a mirrored, it's a cloned or mirrored K7000. So basically every part for a K7000 will work for this to replace. And let me show you what I mean, a little show and tell here. You can see that it's basically just like looking in a mirror. You've got your heat sink here for your vertical chip. They're right here next to each other. You got your filter caps, you got your, what is this, R104 is right here and right there. You've got this capacitor here on the outside of the resistor, which is on the outside of the resistor over here. You've got your CGA connection. You've got your 3 caps here for your bipolar, which are right here as well. You can see that there's this cap here on the inside of the heatsink, and this cap here on the inside of the heatsink, and you got this cap there on the outside, this one on the outside. It's just an actual, you've got your transformer here, right here next to the heatsink, and right here next to the heatsink, and your H coil and your H coil, and the cap right next to it, and the cap right next to it. You've got your your voltage regulator right there, and voltage regulator right there. So it's basically an exact copy of the K7000, only mirrored, so they're reversed. So you can use the K7000 cap kit, you can use all the K7000 parts, except for the flyback. The flyback is different, so you can't do that. But as far as cap kits, and it's even got, they're labeled the same. It even says, let's see if I can show it here, IC1, IC2, IC1, IC2. It's the same exact chassis. You can use the same parts for everything. It's got the 3 transistors here for the color input, just like over here. And yeah, for all intents and purposes, it's a K7000 just flipped. So yeah, if you're doing any troubleshooting on these things, you can use cap kits and ICs and parts and pieces and everything from a K7000 if you can't find a dedicated for this one. It's even got where the yoke connects, it's got D18s in there, just like the 7000. It's got the jumper here for center, left, and right for your H position. Let's see. The difference, obviously, there's a fan on top, which goes with a little control board here with a control transistor. I may need to look at that. That's a bit loose. But yeah, for all intents and purposes, it's a K7000. The problem here is, like the last, I think, I think 3 or 4 out of these that I've received is missing the remote board. So I normally would not be able to do anything with this because you definitely don't want to power it up without the remote board. Well, it just so happens I have this exact monitor in my Neo Geo machine, which means I have a remote board. So I can plug this in for testing. But obviously this is mine, so it's not leaving with this chassis, so the owner of this is going to have to find himself one of these if he wants to use this. But just for testing purposes, I'll put mine in there and see how it works. So I don't want to do it just yet. We're going to give this a look over and see if we can notice anything odd before we start working on it, or testing I should say. But everything appears to be intact. Just based off looking at these prior and experience, I don't see anything missing. And I suspect that it works just fine because, like I say, when it says here, displayed fine then blind to no sound, well, the monitor being dead won't affect the sound output of the Neo Geo machine. So I think his Neo Geo machine crapped out and the monitor is actually fine. But anyway, so yeah, it looks okay. Linearity coil, I always check, seems intact. In here you've got your they're not labeled the same. Instead of C36 and C69 for your critical safety, I believe they're labeled C85 and C79, which these guys right here. And then the width cap is even further in. The width cap is actually, you probably aren't going to see it's way back in here. So it's just set up just like a K7000. The width cap is inboard, and then the other 2 caps are, the safety caps are right there. Fuse appears to be good, so we'll check all the components here in a minute. Let's look at the back side. Let's look at it this way. This has got something going on here. Not sure what's up with this. This is very suspicious. These are the input wires for the power. These guys here. So I don't know what the hell is going on there with that, but they just go right over to here. So I'm not sure what's going on. We'll take a look at it more closely. Let's zoom back out. Oh, I always go the wrong way. All right. Something's going on here. Look at that. Someone has cut the trace. They've gouged the trace here and gouged the trace there and put this jumper on there. What the hell? Obviously it must have worked. It must have been working or worked at some point with that mod. So I don't know if I want to... I don't know what would happen if I took it off of there. Obviously it's serving some kind of purpose, but it no longer, you know, D18, no longer connects to over here. So on these boards, the D18, instead of being flat on the board, like let's say from this point to this point, like on the normal K7000, on this machine, on this chassis, it's facing up. Let me see if I can get in there and show you. So if we look in here, you can see this right here. There's one leg of the D18, the other leg is actually going down through the chassis, so it's mounted vertically. But what in the hell is going on with this? I've never seen anything like that before. Someone's gouged the trace and put a jumper on there. But like I say, obviously it probably worked like that. I imagine it did. So I guess we'll leave it and see what happens. If something explodes, we'll come back and try and fix that. Why that's like that, I can't say. We'll see if it does anything. It looks like the solder for some of these connections here for your remote board. These have had it. Let's see if I can get my pointer out here and zoom in a bit. Nope, piece of junk. You can see that this one is cracked. Maybe you can't. Can I get closer, please? Nope, it just won't work. That's the limit, but you can see I'm getting hailed. This one's cracked, And this one's cracked. And looks like this one's got a crack around it. That seems to be 3 or 4 of them need reflowed fairly. I'm going to reflow all of them, obviously, but at least there's 3 or 4 of them that are visibly broken. Our video header pins all look okay. I don't see anything wrong with those. Everything else seems okay at a quick cursory glance. So let's see if we can do some testing. Who is trying to get a hold of me? Let me look here. Okay. Let's turn that off. Sorry about that. Alright, so being that this is just like a K7000, we can treat it as such, meaning we can test all the normal things here. So on the normal 7000, you know, your HOT is mounted in right here by your transformer and on the inside of the heat sink right here. But you can see it's not there on this one. It's actually on the other side. It's located right in here. Maybe you can see a little bit of it. But yeah, it's right here where my finger's at. That's where it's at in there. And you can see the legs going down through into the chassis. They're right in here like that. So that means we have to go on the underside, which is corresponding to looks like these 3 here. 1, 2, 3. So we'll go to the center and touch each leg. Should be 0.45 or 0.5 something. There you go, 0.467, and same on here, 0.467. HOT is good. We can test our voltage regulator. Again, you want pins 1 and 4, just like the 7000. It's right here on the side. And 1 and 4 is going to be 0.150, give or take, because we're reading through the B plus resistor. You're just checking to make sure you don't get a reading like this. 0. That's what you're checking for. So we'll go to let's go to ohms here. Actually, you know, let's go to diode. And 1 and 4, there we go, 0.151 actually. And if we go to ohms, this should read 180, give or take, across the B plus resistor. There we go, 181.4. So we know our voltage regulator is good, our B plus resistor is good, our HOT, where did it go? Here, right here is good. We can test our D18, which again, if that's shorted, we're going to have a bad day. We'll go here, and it's labeled right here, D18. So let's see if we measure it. I think this is the frame, and this will be the diode. Okay, so that's backwards. So we'll flip our leads around. There we go, 0.92. So D18's good. This is still very disconcerting. I don't know what's up with this, but we'll find out. Nothing that's going to happen to it that I can't fix. Okay, what about R103? And they even call it R103 on here. It's R103 on this one and R103 on the 7000. So it's just amazing how they could just get away with cloning that like this. All right, so we're looking for, what was it, 3 ohms, give or take? Let's see if I can get in here. 3 ohms. All right, on the money. Okay, I think that's probably going to be about all I want to check, because like I say, I'm fairly confident this will power up. But unless the flyback is bad, it should power up. Oh, we can check our fuse. Our fuse is good. So we got a good fuse, a good HOT, a good voltage regulator. R103 is good. We've got the D18 is good. We can check our caps here. Looks like they are, again, you're just making sure that they're not shorted. Obviously, I think they're going to read 1.5 meg ohm or something, if I recall correctly. Looks like we're checking C79, C85, and okay. So there's 2 caps in here and then 1 forward. So our width cap is up front, and I'm going to try and visually locate it here. It's right here, C70. Well, this line's This line's going through it, so it's actually this tab and this tab. Well, I'm not sure what it should read on this chassis, but it's not shorted. That's all we're worried about. Now we go to C79. There's our 1.5 meg. That's a normal reading. Well, it was there. It's losing capacitance, probably because I've got the leads on it. See, that's reading the same as this one, so I'll say it's okay. And now C85. There we go. There's our 1.5, give or take. I knew one of them would at least. So they're not shorted, that's all I'm worried about. So I think that really will wrap it up. I'd like to do my reflow on at least the header pins for the remote board before I power it on, because there were 3 of them that were definitely cracked. I don't see anything else that's obviously cracked or bad or needs reflowed. So let's get this going. And I will reflow those pins and we'll install our remote board and then we'll get it on a tube and cross our fingers. And if it works, I'm going to use, a K7000 cap kit because all the caps are the same exact rating. And I even have, let's see, if we look at the filter cap, it is 200 volt, 680. Let's do it this way so you can actually read it. 200 volt, 680 microfarad. And we have, oh really? Filter cap's different. I may be incorrect. It's 560. I just do happen to have, if I can find it here, that's a 560. Somewhere out there. Oh, where'd you go? Here it is. There we go. Got one. 250 volt, which you can go up in voltage. That's fine. 680. Let's double check again. 250, 200 actually, which is fine, and 680. So I'll put this one in. Well, I guess I said corrected here because this one's not the same, but the rest of them are, trust me. So if I go through and find any discrepancies, I'll let you know. But I'm 99.999% sure every cap on this chassis is the exact same as a 7000. I guess obviously except for the filter cap. So in all likelihood, this one will probably work just as well. But since it's rated at 680, I'll put a 680 in. Otherwise, yeah, let me get this reflow going and set this aside. Alright. I always like to change the filter caps on these because they'll cause the screen to be wavy over time. So let's get these reflowed. I realized we forgot to look at the neck board. I'll look at it here in a moment. How did that get all tied up like that? Piece of junk. All right. Well, that one's cracked too. Interesting. I'm doing this sideways, and of course I bridge it. Oh, I had it. I had it separated, and I lost it.
Yeah, alright, I'm done messing around. There we go. Alright. I saw one little sliver in there. I don't trust it, so we're going to do this again here. Why are you still there? I got a little overzealous there and scraped it. It happens. What, shit? Sometimes. All right, that should be good. Yes, indeed. I'm going to check something else here. That should definitely not be together. All right. So, I guess let's see if we can clean this up here real quick. Not sure what's going on here. Why this is like the board got burned up or something, and there's some type of glue all over this, or a plastic. I don't know what the hell this is. Yeah, I'll clean this up later. I'm sure it'll work for testing. All right, let's look at our neck board. We can put all of our pots to center, which I always do. Looks like they're pretty much basically already centered, most of them. You can usually tell how good a tube is. If the tube is good, these should all be close to center. If some of them are way down or way up, and others, if some are way down, this one's way up, the tube's usually got some guns going bad. One of the three guns is going out, but these were relatively all in the center. Transistors seem good. Resistors aren't smashed flat. Okay, let's get a tube and get it hooked up and see what happens. So we're all hooked up. Anode, neck, yoke, ground, and video. Count to 5 plus power is 6. If you want to get technical, number 7 would be the remote board. The remote board is installed. I have my brightness and contrast turned all the way down and flyback turned down and slightly up a little bit so we aren't overdriven. And then we'll set the procedure where we turn it up to get the raster, turn it down till the raster goes away, and then supplement again with brightness and contrast. So hopefully it doesn't explode. I'm confident that it'll be okay. Assuming that it is, I'll go ahead and do the cap kit, and then we'll test it again. Assuming it's good then, we will call it done. And of course, since it's a K7000 basically, I've got a K7000 tube. So let us share in the knowledge together. I have not turned it on, and we'll see if it explodes or really what happens here. So, uno momento, por favor. Alright, let's zoom in a little bit. Alright, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Well, fan came on. We got high voltage. I don't imagine we'll get a picture that we can see until I do some adjustment. Nope. Alright, so let's turn up our flyback.
Nothing. That's odd. Okay, so let's turn the flyback about halfway and do our brightness contrast. Hey, there we go, I got something. Now that's brightness all the way up. Man, let's turn our contrast back down. Well, it's upside down, which isn't unexpected, but that's pretty bad. That's about as bright as I can get it. Huh. Well, just like I thought, it's working. So I think the guy's Neo Geo machine crapped out, but it could just be an issue with whatever's causing this. I can't say, but right there the flyback is maxed out. I've never had to max out a flyback before. It needs a new flyback because I can tell you right now it needs a new flyback because the focus adjustment is cranked all the way to one side. Normally if you can't get a good decent focus with the focus knob roughly in the middle of the adjustment, if you have to go completely to one side or the other, then the focus resistor inside the flyback is failing. So I think the flyback is on its way out, because right now it's maxed out and this is the brightest I can get it. So I think the flyback is shot. There's brightness. Wait a minute, I don't know if that's brightness or I can't tell. Okay, that's obviously brightness. That's maxed out. Contrast is down. Okay, right there is the only point that I can set it where it's not, the colors aren't bleeding. Right there is the only point I can put it where the colors are bleeding. Plus, if you look over here on the right, you can see that the image is cut off. Let's do. So right there is decent focus, but that's as bright as it'll go. Yeah, you can see over here on the right that it's collapsed, so I need to do. So let's just do caps. Let me see if I can do some type of adjustment here to make it better. Let's see here. Vertical size. Yeah, contrast is on the edge. There's contrast. That's the brightest I can make it look without the colors bleeding. That's really bad. Man. So traditionally, see right there the focus is fairly decent in person. Now normally caps don't affect color. They'll obviously will fix this problem over here, but normally caps don't affect color. And it's still too tall. It's too tall, but I've got the vertical size all the way down. So that's another issue as well. And vertical size. Yeah, that's all the way down and it's still too tall, so we may have failing caps when it comes to that as well. Man, it's not a tube issue. We can rule that out because it's glorious on with my 7000 hooked up to it. So this is what I've been using for all this testing, and we know that's good. So I guess what we'll do is, there's not much else I can do as far as adjustments. I can turn up the colors on the neck board, or down as needed. That doesn't really seem to do much. Nope. Well, let's do our cap kit and some cleanup and reflowing and whatnot, and we'll see where we're at from that point. I obviously need to turn the yoke connector around for the vertical.
because it's correct left and right, but it's flipped upside down. So I guess we'll do that. I will do, wow, that's no good. Look at the bleeding on that. Yep. If I turn it down anymore, you won't be able to see it at all. So I'll do the cap kit and the reflow and the cleanup. We'll hook it back up and we'll see where we're at. So I promise I won't adjust anything. I'll just do the cap kit, the reflow, hook it back up. We'll turn it on and see what it looks like from just doing the cap kit and the reflow. Hopefully it's better. If not, this may be a lost cause. I don't know what type of flyback to use on this. I don't think the standard K7000 one will work. So let's just hope the cap kit and the reflow will fix these issues, and maybe if not, we'll do some color adjustments. Maybe that'll work, but we'll see. So stay tuned. One moment. When I cut back here, it'll all be done. We'll test it again. Full cap kit's installed. Full reflow complete. All the original caps are right there. None of them appeared to be leaking, but they are all quite clearly original. So yeah, even filter cap has been changed. We're all ready to go. All hooked back up. Anode, neck, yoke, ground video, and our remote board. So yeah, we're ready. Let's get this on the tripod and see what we get. I have not turned it on, just like I said. So we'll see if something blows up or something different happens or how it looks now. I did actually flip the yoke connector around for the vertical. So we'll get to see if that did anything. So here we go. Well, fan's running. We got high voltage. Is it going to be any different? Oh, well, it might help if we focus. Why is it? There we go. I see nothing. Well, flyback is all the way up. I got nothing. And we got no change. Well, it's kind of shrunk. It's kind of shrunk on both sides now. Where's our H position? H position is right here. Yeah, that's no good. Where is this? Well, somebody has stripped out the H width coil, so that's good. I think I have one I can replace it with, but it's still squished real bad on the side there, even after the cap kit. And that's as bright as I can get it. Let's see if I can kill the light here. Yeah, that's all you get. I turn it down to where it's more balanced. That's the best it's going to be without bleeding, and that is no good. Oh, well, let's see if I can figure something else out. Stand by and I'll see what I can do. Well, it's the next day here, and as you can see, I now have a fully functional, beautiful working monitor. However, this is not the chassis that I've been working on. This is the same exact type of chassis, model and everything, with the original tube that was out of my Neo Geo machine that I restored a number of years ago. That's up at the arcade right now. So I went to the arcade and I pulled this monitor out of the machine and brought it home because I want to do some comparative testing. So now that I have an actual dedicated tube that's meant for this specific chassis, I have that scratched off the list, and as you can see, the tube is fine. The tube's not the issue. I want to use this chassis, since it's working, to do comparative readings on polycaps and resistors and look at the capacitors to see if maybe the K7000 cap kit in fact is not compatible with this. Maybe there's a couple caps that are different, because I had the squished image on both sides. Both sides were collapsed horizontally, and the vertical size was too high on my 7000 tube that I was working on. And it was like that before the cap kit and after the cap kit. So I want to make sure that I have the correct rating of caps in here, so I can use the ones that are in here as a guide. And you know, I think I thought the original probably might have been the flyback, but I don't think so. So after thinking about it last night and mulling it over, I don't think it's the flyback. So I think maybe we have a bad cap somewhere that is not part of the cap kit, or maybe a bad poly cap. But I'm going to use this chassis as a test bed for the other one, and we'll do some comparative readings, and I want to see what the differences are, if there are any. I'm going to test all the diodes and the poly caps and regular resistors, and check those, cross-reference those between the two chassis, and check the capacitance ratings, and just really do everything in due diligence and see if I can figure out what's the cause of the other one to be such a dark image. You can see this one's glorious. So the other one is just so dark, and the minute you try and do anything with the contrast or brightness, it just bleeds the colors immediately terribly, so profusely. So I want to do the comparative readings and see what's going on, but let me show you this one, and you can see it's the exact same model. The fan's a bit weak. I had to actually give it a little jump start to get it to run, but it's the same as this one, and we're going to take it apart and we'll see what I can find, if there's any differences, and we'll see if we can make this one work. I have this loose because I was doing readings earlier, so but yep, I only have one remote board. This is the remote board that I stole for this one, and of course it belongs to this chassis. So let's get this shut down, and I'll do some comparative readings, and we'll see what I can find, and I'll report my findings. One moment. Well, I went through and did my comparative readings, and I could find absolutely no discernible discrepancies between this original one that came on the tube and this one here that I've been trying to repair. Nothing. The caps are all the same, size and rating and everything, so that pretty much confirms that if you have a K7000 cap kit on hand, you can use it to cap this KTW-26N. Of course, they do make dedicated cap kits for this specific chassis, but if you don't have one on hand, you can use a K7000. All the caps are the same as a real K7000. So I checked the poly caps and the electrolytics and all the diodes and resistors and transistors. I could find nothing different between this one and this one. So I sat there and mulled it over, and I thought, what could possibly be the issue? Well, there were two different issues here. One was ended up being an incompatibility with the tube that I was testing. Even though this was, or is, a complete K7000 mirrored clone, except for the flyback, that's the only real part that's different. There is apparently something that this doesn't like with the actual K7000 tube. Now, I've been under the impression for the last 15 years or so that you could use a K7000 for this tube. Well, or for this chassis. Now, I think I ran all these years with that in my head, because at some point I tried it and I think it worked. But maybe that K7000 tube was not a true K7. Maybe it was someone had a K7000 on a 7400 tube, or really, who knows? I don't know what the situation is, but this is the first time I've actually ever had to try and repair one of these that didn't have its mother tube, if you will. So it turns out that after putting this chassis on this tube that's dedicated specifically for this type of chassis, it works fine. Well, I take that back. It didn't at first. I noticed that the cap kit, the neck board has C204, which is this guy here, this metal film capacitor. And you always, usually change that out to electrolytic, and it calls out 250 volts. If I can do this here, it calls out a 250 volt 4.7 to go in. Now, when I did that, that's when I had the dark screen. Now, I had a dark screen before, but that was due to the tube and all the issues with that I just described. But after doing the cap kit, it didn't make any difference, because I installed this cap in that C204 position, and that's when I lost my my ability to adjust the screen pot. I could turn the screen pot all the way up, all the way down, and it made absolutely no difference to just a little bit of difference. It just seemed to not do anything, and that was because of this. And it turns out that that's the wrong rating to put in C204. So I put the original film capacitor back in. It's going to be hard to see. But yeah, there it is. I put the original film capacitor back in. After that, I regained my complete full range of adjustment on the screen pot. So that fixed that problem. So I don't know what rating. Well, I guess I could look on this one. It should be what looks like 103K. Yeah, I don't really know how to ascertain what that should be. There you go. The other side is blank. Yeah, so anyway, I just put the original metal film capacitor back in, and that gave me my full screen control again. So that, coupled with the fact that I was using an incompatible tube, and I know that for a fact because I haven't done anything to this. Between the last part where it was all completely dark and the sides were squished, on both sides were squished, you know, about 3 inches or so on each side was squished down, and the screen was dark. All that's gone, and I haven't done anything to the chassis except do the testing of the various components and put it on its mother tube that it's supposed to be used with. So after doing that, it now works perfectly. I still can't adjust the width because the coil is frozen solid. I tried, and I don't want to use a metal Allen key because I'll break the graphite, but look what it's so tight in there that look what it did to my plastic adjustment tool. It just snapped it in 2 pieces. So I need a new one of those now, but so it's locked tight, so I can't adjust the width, which really isn't my problem. But now I can. You saw before the vertical was stretched high, and the top was cut off, the bottom was cut off, and it was already at the minimum setting that it could possibly go to on the remote board, and it was still too tall. That's fixed as well now. So with 100% certainty, that K7000 tube was not completely compatible with this chassis. So we learned something every day. So moving on from that, I've got the one I'm trying to repair. This is the original one that came on the tube from my Neo Geo machine. This is the one that I've been trying to fix. And I have the remote board on there from this chassis. Again, this one didn't have one, just like the previous 4 or so prior to this. The owner is going to have to find one, otherwise this is going to be useless to him, but at least he'll know it's working if and when he does find a remote board. So after getting this plugged in and tested, and all of my color pots adjusted, and brightness, contrast, and screen and focus, it's phenomenal. So the whole problem was a incompatible tube yoke combination that I was testing on, and the incorrect type and rating of cap causing the dark screen coupled with that. So yep, I think that's about it. So with that being explained, let's go ahead and get it on the tube here, and or I'm sorry, on the tripod. Let's get it on the tripod. Oops, sorry. And we will turn it on, and you can see how it looks. I got to make sure that everything is copacetic, that when it comes to anode neck, the yoke, we got our ground, video, power should be good. Let's see what we get. Let's get this out of the way here first, in case we need to adjust something. Powered on, fans running. Let's see how it turns out. The tube could use with a rejuvenation. It's old and tired, but when it brightens up and fully comes on, it looks great. So there you see, no more squished image, no more, the sides aren't squished and collapsed anymore, and I didn't do anything. I just put it on the correct tube, and that fixed that problem. And you can see the vertical size is no longer stretched, and it's down to where it needs to be, and you'll see in a moment the credits up on the top and push start are now down further, not cut off anymore. The bottom is raised up. The only problem now is it's a bit too wide, and like I say, I can't adjust the width, so we'll give it some time to warm up here, and as it does, you can see how good it looks. So I'll zoom in. It's nice and crisp and clear. Yeah, look at that. Beautiful. Perfect. Colors are good. That's looking nice. So again, all I did was install it on the correct tube. I don't know why. Let me turn this off. It's got a ripple from the fan. There we go. I don't understand really. I could have sworn it was compatible with the K7000 tube, and
It may very well be compatible, but there must have been something with that particular tube I was testing on. I have a whole bunch more I could have gone and used for testing, but I wanted to grab this tube with the other chassis here so I could do comparative readings. So based on that, I found the problem. It was the incompatible tube and the wrong C204. Yep, and it looks great. Zoom in up here. Yeah, I dare say this is one of the best looking monitors that I've got now. Or actually, it's not mine, I'm sorry. One of the best looking monitors that I've ever really kind of worked on, I should say. Now that it's on the right tube is all. So an important lesson for all of us. You got to make sure you've got a correct compatible tube, or you end up with issues like what we saw. And you could have blown me over with a feather. I would have thought in a million years it was always compatible. But and again, it very well may be compatible. I just simply had that one unfortunate tube that maybe somebody changed at some point in the past with the 7400, and they put a 7000 on it, and who knows. But this chassis should be compatible with the 7000 and the U2000 and 7400 and U5000 and all the standard res monitors like that. The 5000 is dual res, but the yoke still supports standard res. But anyway, so yeah, it's fully working. You can see it looks great, works perfect, and except for being too wide, which I can't adjust, I'm going to call it fixed. Yep, there you go, fixed. So lesson learned. We all learned something. I don't know everything, even though I may think I do, or others may think I do, but I don't know everything. So I'm happy to have this fixed, because now the owner will have 6 of his 7 chassis fully up and working. Again, I mentioned at the beginning of the video that the 7th chassis I can't test because I don't have a compatible yoke for it. But yeah, I'm glad I was able to get this figured out. I was laying in bed last night thinking, what the hell could this possibly be? So I had to just break down and go to the arcade and get my monitor here that had the same chassis in it, so I could use the chassis for comparative readings. And after I couldn't find anything, I put the chassis on this tube, and it works just fine. So like I say, I can't speak as to what is wrong with the other tube that this chassis doesn't like, but it likes the mother tube that it's designed to be used with, which of course makes sense. So now we know it's not an issue with the chassis, and if it gets to the owner and he plugs it in and has a similar issue, he'll know that it's not the chassis, it's a tube issue. He'll have to find the right type of tube. But yep, so thanks for watching, and it's been a fun repair-a-thon, and stay tuned for more content. I appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.